Okay. That has been taken care of. Along with feeding cats. At first, I thought it was a dream. I was staring at this strange sheet, not really understanding what it was. That was all. I didn't go after it, nor did I ridicule it. The fact was that the boring view was the ceiling of my own room, but I didn't realize that for a very long time. Yeah, I thought I'd been dreaming, but I'd actually been staring at the ceiling the whole time. Lethargy induced by the voices of the cicadas. Even after I realized I was awake, I couldn't draw forth the energy to sit up. Everything I could see, everything I could hear, everything was like a television broadcast that had already ended. It was hot. So hot I could choke on the heat. My back was moist with night sweats, and it felt gross. Unable to endure it any longer, I tossed on my futon, and finally blood started coursing through my brain. I lazily recalled the long day I had yesterday. The reality is I lay here listening to the voices of the cicadas, and yesterday so different from it. In order to kill Satoko's uncle, I had rehearsed, formulated a plan, and dug a hole. It was very hot, and I was tired, wasn't I? And when evening came, I went to school and called him out on the phone. I panicked for a moment when he asked where the police station was, but it worked out. And then I waited him and swooped down. I couldn't remember anymore what sort of emotions I'd let control my body. In any case, it didn't go smoothly, but I did it. It was very hard to dig the hole for the body. The feel of the rain pelting down on me, I don't think I'll ever forget it. The rain, the mud, and the sprays of blood. The sensation of floundering in a swamp. When I met Takano-san on the way home, that wasn't good, no matter how I interpreted it. It was the most misfortunate and uncalculated thing that had happened that night. Everything would have been perfect, if only I hadn't encountered her. Huh. I was just riding my bike with my shovel in one hand through the downpour, utterly soaked. There was no way someone could survive I was a murderer burying a body just from that information. Now that I was thinking calmly, napping under the morning sun, that's what I thought. Still, the more I thought about Takano-san's eyes, it seemed like she understood. Takano-san, she knew that I'd killed someone, buried them, and that I'd been on my way home, exhausted. Takano-san wouldn't gain anything from selling me out to the police, but that didn't mean I could feel at ease. I had crossed such a bridge to get my tranquil life back, and had finally achieved it as a result. But now, for the rest of my life, for all the tranquil days starting today, I'd have to live in fear of when they could suddenly end. I may have twisted my ankle, dulled from total exhaustion. The fact that I couldn't make the snap judgment I needed to, I regretted it more and more as time went on. You didn't have a choice, Keiichi Maebara. You didn't have any choice at the time. You were tired. You were a mess. Even if you had made the decision, you might not have been even able to kill her. She might have just beaten you instead. In that sense, parting ways uneventfully could have been the safer option. No matter how sharp Takano-san's intuition was, she had no proof. Her suspecting me didn't amount to evidence by itself.
理屈じゃ分かってるさ。でも、だからって何の心配もないってわけじゃないだろ
う。Just worry about it when the time comes. Now isn't the time to be worrying. It's a time to be smiling, right? You accomplished so much just to gain a new life starting today, didn't you? then you should be happy at this new morning. If remembering the past is too hard for you, then just consider everything up to yesterday as having never happened. You said so yourself. You'd bury it all like it never happened. Well, your wish came true. Everything before yesterday never happened. So be happy, Keiichi Maebara.
Why?
I stuck my hands up lazily. It felt a little silly for me to be the one doing it. I heaved a sigh from deep in my belly. That sigh got my lungs moving. I felt like I hadn't been breathing until just now. It wasn't enough to admonish myself over. All the dice that could be thrown already had been, and the numbers that turned up weren't bad at all. If I lost with those numbers, then I'd just have to give up, I guess. I grabbed the chest of my pajamas and flapped it back and forth. Cool air flowed over my sweating body. Okay, nothing before yesterday happened. Nothing. Nothing at all. I'd forget it all. Yesterday was a dream. What time was it? About midday? Getting myself up and going to school this late seemed kind of absurd. But I needed to go. I felt like going to school would be the first step to my peaceful new life. I didn't care how late it was. I would go. I'd go to school right now and get back to the life I'd retaken as soon as I could. My lazy body immediately became lighter at the thought. I rolled up out of the futon, bounced onto my knees, and then leaped upright.
10.0
I stuck out my chest with pride at my gymnast-like pose, then took a deep breath of fresh air. The brisk morning air had been gone for a while, replaced by the crisp air of summer. Downstairs, I got a stern talking to by my mother. Where were you last night? When did you get back? You need to tell me when you won't be home for dinner. Things like that. But considering the importance of what I'd accomplished yesterday, a little scolding was no problem. In fact, it even felt like the sort of thing that would happen in such a peaceful life. I listened with an irresponsible smile, and stepped out into the sun high overhead. It was around the time lunch break would be ending. Everyone would probably be worrying about me. I didn't go to the festival, and now I wasn't at school. Well, maybe they weren't too worried about it, since they would have gotten a small piece of news, but a happy one from Satoko today. Yeah, the small piece of news that her uncle hadn't come home last night. Satoko would probably live her days in nervous tension for a while, thinking he might still come home. But eventually, all those days would end. And finally, Satoko, too, would realize her uncle was never coming back. And then Rika-chan would quietly invite her. She would say, "You can live with me again," and everything would be back to normal. Our lives would go back to how they were before that man appeared. Satoko would start wearing that extraordinary smile, complete with those protruding canines, and fool everyone with those traps she was so proud of. I'd probably be her first target out of everyone, but I wouldn't be mad. In fact, I might actually shed tears of joy at the return of something so normal. Satoko, she'd gradually grow back into that meddlesome personality of hers. I mean, my lack of useful life skills was already completely exposed. I wondered if I'd ever be a match for Satoko. But that would be such a pleasant thing to see, too. And with such warm, fuzzy predictions, I didn't feel bad for going to school so late. In fact, I wanted to run there now to get as soon as I could. Instead, I decided to savor the peacefulness of just going to school like normal, without running. The world I'd obtained for myself, that gave me joy just by walking like this. Yeah, the world beginning on this very day was something I had won. Without that monumental feat yesterday, I would never have been able to come to school so cheerfully today. The school gate came into sight. Just then, I heard the principal ringing the bell to mark the end of lunch break. It was a clear, refreshing sound. I stopped despite myself, and let myself take it in. I'd stopped suddenly, so there was an extra footstep. With a noise, the blessedness I was feeling throughout my whole body withdrew into any pore it could find. And as if to replace it, it felt like hundreds of hairy caterpillars were climbing up my feet. I turned back, but of course, nobody was there. A single footstep could have easily been my imagination, but the footstep felt so ominous. The extra footstep I'd heard after seeing Takano-san off last night. With everything that happened on that insane night, I didn't mind something like that happening once. It had been a hell of a night after all. In fact, having just one hallucination was pretty fortunate. But those footsteps should have ended with yesterday, so if I heard them again today, there was really only one thing it could have meant. Last night still wasn't over. It was still going. Still. That insane night. Forever. The step I heard, just that one extra footstep, was quietly ridiculing the nonsensical notion that the world starting today was completely different from the one that ended yesterday. My classmates playing in the schoolyard all vanished inside like the tide going out. When I approached the school, it felt like that warm, fuzzy scene had ended, and it didn't feel good. At the entrance, I took a quick look at everyone's shoe boxes. Satoko Hojo, she was here. Mion was here too. And Reina, of course. Even Rika-chan was here. Tomita-kun and Okumura-kun were here. In fact, I didn't see any missing classmates. If there were shoes missing, they would have to be my own. I took my shoes off, then sucked them in, then took out some slippers. There wasn't a single pair left in the shoe boxes anymore. With that, they returned to their rightful state. But as I stepped on the wooden floor, I noticed there was just one pair of slippers left. Yeah, who's...
Hojo Satoshi.
Satoshi, who had never been to school since disappearing last year. Until now, we committed the exact same act of violence, but I guess, in the very end, it went differently. You couldn't make it to school, but here I am. I didn't repeat the same mistake you made. I wasn't about to let myself feel superior about that. In fact, I felt an odd sense of familiarity with him. A misfortunate bond with someone I'd never met due to following the same fate. I headed down the hallway towards the usual classroom. It felt like it had been a whole year since coming here. Hey, did you forget Keiichi Maebara? Satoshi Hojo didn't really disappear on the night of Watanagashi, did he? Satoshi Hojo disappeared a few days later. On Satoko's birthday, if I was right. I didn't know what day it was, but I couldn't say for sure I'd avoided Satoshi's failure unless I remained here past that day. I was still living in that night of insanity. The teacher still hadn't come to the classroom. The other door clattered open, the one the teacher wouldn't use, so everyone turned at once to see who had arrived. Everyone looked pretty vacant. Suppose I'll greet them.
Ohayo, Shokun. Demukae gokurou de aru zo yo.
Yeah, what are the odds he doesn't make it past that day? When I started to think I'd fallen flat, someone finally started laughing for me.
Ohayo, Kei-chan. Keisa mo tobashiteru ne. 飛ばしてるね。ケイチ君、まだお祭り気分が抜けてないのかもしれない。
Hearing Mion and Reina's cheerful voices made me realize how dumb those dark feelings I'd been having at the entrance really were.
おいおい、お祭り気分って、そもそも俺。
At the festival at all, remember? Before I could say that, Rika-chan smiled at me.
ケイチはちゃんと僕の演舞見ててくれましたですか？ちゃんと見てたよ。
Huh?
あんなにいっぱい拍手してくれてたのに、リカちゃん気づかなかったのかな？
What's going on?
ケイちゃんにシオンのやつがちょっかい出してきたのを無視してね。
What?
シオン、ざまあなかった。ああ、いい気分。
No, I'm still working. I'm just trying to figure out exactly what happened here. Huh. Mion starts laughing at the memory as she slaps me a few times on the back.
それであの射的屋の対決って結局どうなったんですか？
Did we cross timelines? I think we crossed timelines. Tomita-kun was facing me and talking. There was nobody behind me. That meant he was talking to me?
あれは結局富田家がビリだったのですよ。みんなで楽しく罰ゲームをしましたです。
I mean, these are the results of last game.
リカちゃんも実質ビリみたいなもんだったじゃない。あそこで起死回生の大技でガムをゲットとは、さすがは我が部の部員。見事だったよ。
Crying at a time like that is a feat only Furude would be allowed to do, said Okamura-kun, breathing heavily from his nose. In my direction. Everyone laughed. If anyone but Rika-chan had done it, it would have been against the rules. Rika-chan gave one of her knee-paw smiles to me as she listened to it. In my direction. Reina turned towards me. And then, with a somewhat embarrassed smile, she whispered to me so only I could hear.
でも本当にありがとね、ケイチくん。
何がだよ。
あのでっかいぬいぐるみ。
Yeah, what is going on here? The only logical explanation is he's still at home dreaming and he just hadn't been woken up for school yet. That's the only logical explanation.
すっごく嬉しかった。
Oh great, we still gave the stuffed animal to Reina. We didn't give it to Mion.
大事に枕元に置いてるんだよ。ちゃんと寝る前にお休みのキスしちゃった。
He's gotta be dreaming. The class laughed at that, cheering and jeering. This whole time, the conversation had been a little off. I wasn't quite getting it. You and me both.
ぬいぐるみがどうしたって？
どうしたって、ほら、昨日のお祭りでみんなで頑張って落としたよ。
No, that was the last game, Reina. You're thinking of the last game.
でっかいぬいぐるみ。でっかいぬいぐるみ。
Reina seemed taken aback, but when she answered it, she did it with a smile.
なかなか倒せないから機体を狙ったり素早く何発も撃ったりしていろいろと試したんだよね。それでケイチくん、鉄砲を何丁もあらかじめ用意して素早く撃ってみせてくれたんだよね。かっこよかった。はう。
This tastes like morphogenic. Wait. Who is this?
あの後の飲み会でさ、町内会の会長連中にもケイちゃんの評判すごく良かったんだよ。
Yeah, this only works if you've played the previous chapters, yeah.
ケイちゃんの売り工場に惚れたって騒いでたのは 子供会の君吉徳三会長だったかな。
If they're making an alibi, it's very specific.
次の祭りではぜひケイちゃんに何店舗か任せたいって言ってた。
徳蔵はお祭りの実行委員会の模擬店部長さんなのです。
Okay, that's different. Meibara-san is great at making things sound good, isn't he? Yeah, it is something the club could technically pull off. Yep, whenever he talks about something, it seems a lot better than it actually is. Now, that happened. That happened in the previous games, but we just didn't hear about anyone wanting to make us in charge of anything, which might have been discussed outside of Keiichi's knowledge anyway. Ah, you can't say that.
ケイチ君って売り子さんの才能があるんだね。きっとバナナの叩き売りとかやったら上手だと思うよ。
さっきから何の話だよ。だいたい俺
Didn't go to the festival in the first place. I swallowed those words. I didn't know exactly why, but in Hinamizawa, this is what had happened. Yesterday, during the Watanagashi festival, Keiichi Meibara had appeared, and he had romped about with all the usual members of his club. He made a big scene at a few of the stalls, snatched a few sticks of takoyaki and okonomiyaki in his glee, rating each of them as delicious or terrible to get everyone excited. And they'd seen the gigantic stuffed animal at the target practice game, and everyone went after it. And then I get a whole bunch of the cork guns firing in the rapid succession, throwing away each one after using it, and admirably, I shot down the biggest stuffed animal there. And then I gave the stuffed animal the proof of my victory to Reina as a gift. Then our fun came to a close and we had to go see Rika-chan's offertory dance. There was a ton of people squeezed in there and we all got separated, but we each managed to get into good positions to cheer Rika-chan on from. Then in the middle, when Shion came up and asked me to hang out with her instead of watching the dedication dance, I refused, and stayed put, watching the dance until the very end. Huh. It's exactly what we wanted to happen during the second game. Exactly what we wanted to happen during the Watanagashi chapter. But who? Who was that? Well, everyone's been saying it, haven't they? Keiichi Meibara. I had an urge to yell in anger at my classmates for having so much fun talking about the festival yesterday with Keiichi Meibara. What the hell are you guys even talking about? Far stronger than that feeling, though, was the sheer, uncanny nature of this reality I couldn't understand. A Keiichi Meibara who wasn't me was in Hinamizawa yesterday. As I threw away my humanity, turned into a demon, and was busy beating Satoko's uncle to death, I was having a great time at the festival last night. What the hell? I had to suffer through so much, desperately holding back tears, getting so worn out in that downpour, digging holes, chasing, beating, killing, dragging and burying. Who was this Keiichi Meibara who had ignored me so and spent such a fun, carefree time at the festival, damn it? Who in the hell stood in for me as I put my life on the line working so hard to achieve this treasure-like everyday life? I wish I had a shadow clone to do my dirty work for me. If there was another Keiichi Meibara besides me, then what was I? On the night of Watanagashi, where one died and one disappeared, in accordance with the Oyashiro-sama's curse, there was only a demon who had killed someone. Dumbfounded as I succumbed to a horrifying possibility, I looked around at my classmates to make sure there was nobody extra I didn't recognize among them. To make sure I wasn't among them. It was a horrifying thought that the real Keiichi Maebara hadn't overslept and had come to school on time, and that I, who was no longer Keiichi Maebara, had just waltzed in here. But no matter how much I checked, the only people here were ones I knew. The man I met every time I looked in the bathroom mirror was not here.
はい。午後の授業を始めますよ。皆さん席に戻ってください。委員長、号令。
The teacher entered and everyone hurried back to their seats. Upon finding me, who was so stupidly late, she gave me a stern talking to, but I wasn't listening to it. Wasn't our old life supposed to start today? Something wasn't right. It was just strange. I was supposed to go back to my old fun life after yesterday. I had set foot in an incomparably mysterious world that was completely different from both my old life and my recent one. Yes, this was without a doubt a different world than the one I'd been living in until now. There was no way such an absurd thing could be possible. But unless it was true, I couldn't explain anything that had just happened. In this classroom, I was surrounded by so many faces I knew, and yet I felt isolated. The cicadas sounded no different than they had before, but they seemed somehow false. The air was parched and dry, too, making me think, was the air in Hinamizawa always this uncomfortable?
Oi, Lena.
Yeah, he's casually considering this.
何かな？授業中なんだよ。
昨日の祭りだけどさ、俺いつ頃みんなと合流したっけ？
To be honest, I was pretty excited afterward, and I gobbled down some cans of beer. I mean, it's kind of embarrassing, but I don't quite remember some things. For random babbling, it wasn't a bad excuse.
ケイチ君、最初は来れないって言ってたんだよね。みーちゃんの家にそう電話したんでしょ？
That matched. I called Mion and told her to take Satoko in my place, since I wouldn't be able to meet up with them due to things I had to do.
さとこちゃんを誘ってあげようっていうのは、みんなでお祭りの準備をしてた時に決めたんだよ。少しでもおじさんの姿の見えないところに連れ出してあげようと思って。
That was the same too. Mion said that when I called her. That everyone had already decided to invite her.
それでみんなでレナとみーちゃんとリカちゃんでさとこちゃんの家に行ってさとこちゃんを連れ出して、さとこちゃんのおじさんすっごく意地悪そうな人だった。
Yeah, he goes all to pieces really easily. Okay, it wasn't easy, it took many swings, but you know, that part didn't matter. What I was trying to ask was...
俺はそのいつ合流したんだ？
そんなことも忘れちゃってるの？ケイチ君、だから祭りの前の日はよく寝た方がいいよって言ったのに。
だから俺はいつ合流したんだよ。
At my sudden, threatening demand, Reina was at a loss for words. Ugh, I shouldn't have rushed that. I told her I was sorry.
境内でだよ。ひょっこりと。リカちゃんと話してたじゃない。
巫女さん姿のリカちゃんと楽しそうに話してた。 それでレナも加わって「はうお持ち帰り」って。
リカちゃんと話してたのか。
ケイちゃん、用事か何かがあったんじゃないって私が聞いたらさ、ケイちゃん胸を叩きながら自分で言ったじゃないのよ。用事なんかより祭りで大暴れする方が大切だぜって。
I didn't say that. I never said anything like that. I never even went to the shrine grounds yesterday to begin with. I never had the time to stop by a place like that. I went to dig the hole as soon as I woke up. I had a pretty hard time doing it. After that, I snuck into the school and made a call. I called him out and lay in wait. And then it started raining really hard. With that kind of downpour, the festival should have come to a halt. In other words, it ended then. From the time the festival started to when it ended, it would have been impossible for me to swing by the shrine grounds. I was already there when Mion and the others dragged Satoko out and brought her to the shrine, and I was talking to Rika-chan. Then, where would Rika-chan say we met? The teacher went out to wash her hands, so I ran over to Rika-chan's desk and asked her directly.
ケイイチとですか？
ああ、リカちゃんはミオンたちが来る前から俺と話してたんだろ。いつ俺に会ったんだ？いつどこでだよ。
ケイイチが何を聞きたいのかわからないのです。
俺昨日寝不足で半分頭がぼーっとなっててさ、何も覚えてないんだよ。
It looked like Rika-chan bought into my babbling.
ケイイチと会ったのは集会所から村長さんたちと出てきた時なのです。ケイイチは西宮殿の扉の前にいましたのですよ。
え、何？西宮殿？
I'd never heard a building called that before. Or maybe I have, but at the very least I wouldn't know where on the shrine grounds it was.
村長さんがそこは神聖な場所だからみだりに近寄ってはならにゅうと怒りましたですよ。ケイイチ、それも忘れてしまいましたですか？
I was too scared to ask anymore. The more I asked, the more it became clear without any doubt that Keiichi Maebara was present at the Furude Shrine Grounds during the Watanagashi festival. The clearer that became, the more doubts, no fears I had. Who on earth was I yesterday? Whoever that was, me had a good time in my place and managed to go the entire day without letting them notice I wasn't there. Oh, right. When did that person leave everyone? This morning, my mother got mad at me for having stayed out so late last night, which meant that at the very least, that Keiichi Maebara hadn't come home when my mother was still awake. The festival would have been closed because of the downpour. If I recall right, when I went back to the house's storage room to get another shovel, I think the clock said 7. It had to be more than just a split personality, I gotta say. Because if it was just a split personality, he wouldn't have been at the festival and killing Tepe. If I'd returned that early, I would have definitely run into my parents. Or at the very least, they wouldn't have asked me when I got back last night. So the Keiichi Maebara from yesterday, that meant he never went home. That meant the downpour happened, the festival was broken up, everyone left. But he didn't go back to the house. Yeah, that means... When I arrived at the natural conclusion, a wicked chill suddenly froze my spine and climbed up into my brain. That meant Keiichi Maebara was the same as Satoshi. One day he never went home. On the night of Watanagashi, he never went home. The downpour interrupted the festival, and on the way home he suddenly disappeared. And I, who was dealing with the corpse, went home without a problem. I was so tired I wasn't even hungry, so I went up to my room without a sound and crawled into my futon. Who was I? That much was obvious. Keiichi Maebara. Keiichi Maebara was me. There may have been another one, but that doesn't negate the fact that I was Keiichi Maebara. Then that other Keiichi Maebara was what? The voices of the cicadas, slowly, steadily filling the classroom, were beginning to bother me. Suddenly I laid eyes on Satoko. Satoko's expression was dark as always. She seemed completely exhausted, at a life of agony she couldn't even imagine an ending to. What had last night been like for Satoko? Did she have fun with everyone and feel a little happier, if even for a moment? And when she went home, the end of her dream, she'd probably gone to sleep afraid of when her uncle would return. And then this morning, her uncle hadn't come home, and then she went to school. Right now, she must have been still trapped by the rotten idea from which she couldn't be saved, that her uncle would need her when she got back. But you can rest easy, Satoko. Your uncle won't ever be coming back. I couldn't tell her it was because I'd killed him. When Satoko realized on her own that her uncle would never return, then that would truly be the end of the long, insane night. Yeah, she needs to get the time turner away from Keiichi. He's clearly abusing the thing. That's right. I didn't do anything wrong. I did the best possible thing I could have, says Satoko's Nini. Not an atom in my body regretted it. And look, calm down and think, Keiichi Maebara. From a certain point of view, isn't it convenient there was another Keiichi Maebara? I buried the corpse perfectly. A beginning wouldn't happen. But if worse came to worse and it got out, and the investigation got to me, I now had a strong alibi, able to profess the fact that I'd been at the Watanagashi festival. But accepting something so creepy and using it as an alibi. Still, if I proved I hadn't gone to the festival yesterday, it would do no good, and a whole lot of harm. That was what left the really, actually bad aftertaste. You'll forget about it, Keiichi Maebara. Everything that happened before today. So just forget about the Keiichi Maebara who was there yesterday too. Instead, let's watch gently over Satoko for the day her smile returns. And the day that would mark the end of that insane, all too long night. With this game, who knows? Who knows what's going on?
皆さん、寄り道をしないでちゃんとお家へ帰るんですよ。院長、号令。起立。気をつけ。礼。
I thought about many things, and some of my thoughts dispersed by many other things. I didn't know whether or not the time had been spent worrying or daydreaming, but either way, it came to an end, along with the class. Cheerfully, our classmates got their things and ran for the hallway. Mion, Reina, and Rika-chan were packing up as well. What about Satoko? Huh. It looks like Twitch chat kicked me out. And I came back twice. This whole day she seemed deflated. Well, her uncle may have not have returned last night, but she wouldn't have known he'd never return. How much I wanted to express that fact to her face. Satoko packed up her pencil box and math workbook messily, and after a dark glance at the clock, heaved a sigh. Then I went to leave the classroom. Then suddenly, somebody placed a hand on her shoulder and stopped her.
何ですの？私ちゃんと水やり当番もやりましたし、プリントだってちゃんと。
Her words, possessed by a persecution complex, hurt. I spoke loudly so everyone could hear.
なあみんな、さ、今日は久しぶりにやらないか？部活。
Satoko always had to tend to her uncle, so club has been on hiatus. In our minds, our club is proof of a calm, peaceful life. By enjoying being together, I wanted to make Satoko realize her days of darkness were over.
レナはいいよ。
そりゃまあ私は構わないけど、聡子がいいならね。
Under a condition. That was important. With everything up to her, Satoko gave a worried look.
なあ聡子、久々にどうだよ。パーッとさ。
そのお気持ちは嬉しいでございますけど。
My uncle might already be home. Thus spoke her darkened eyes, her mouth unmoving.
聡子もさ、連日息が詰まるような生活をずっと続けててさ、もう窒息寸前だろ。
Let me refresh this. Refreshing chat because it looked like it wasn't responding at all. Yeah, I didn't see that in chat. What are you thinking? She doesn't know yet. Yeah, she doesn't. She does not know yet that she is free of the uncle.
そんなのは心にも体にも悪いだけだぜ。やっぱりたまにはパーッと弾けなきゃな。
放っておいてくださいまし。
And just to check here. Go. Okay, good. It at least does send to the feed, so.
私だってそりゃ部活がまたやれたらと思っていますわよ。
Yeah, Keiichi, he may have been good for cram school, but he's losing points here. With one word, but she looked down.
みんなで遊んだ方が楽しいのは聡子だってよく知ってるだろ。俺たちは仲間だぜ。みんなで一緒に過ごすようにできてるんだよ。聡子だって昨日みんなでお祭りで騒いで楽しかったろ。
Reina nearly said something, but she was too late.
ケイチさん、何を言ってますの？
My arm on her shoulder seemed to weigh her down, and she threw it off.
私がお祭りで楽しく、いつ遊んだって言うんですの？楽しく遊んだのはケイチさんだけじゃありませんの。
I looked over to Mion for help, but now everyone was looking down. My instincts told me that Satoko hadn't gone to the festival. But Reina said it herself, that she went with Mion to Satoko's house to invite her.
さとこちゃん、途中で帰っちゃったの。神社には行かなかった。
どうして？
I realized the absurdity of what I said with Satoko in front of me.
おじが家で待ってるのに一人だけ遊んでると悪いって言って、神社の直前で。
私たちも引き止めたんだよ。今日はおじさん公認だからちゃんと遊んでも怒られないんだよって。
At some point, tears had begun welling up in Satoko's eyes. Satoko, was so afraid of her uncle that she wouldn't even allow herself time with her friends and went home. No. She was even afraid of letting herself have a good time with her friends.
圭一さんはいいですわね。みんなで楽しくお祭り一夜を過ごせて、聞けば大層盛り上がって大活躍だったそうじゃないですの。お羨ましいことですわ。
Smiling to herself, her tears began to fall.
私には養わなければならない叔父がいますの。圭一さんみたいにご両親にのんびり養ってもらってる人とはわけが違いますですのよ。
Damn. Unloading with both barrels.
さとこ、
楽しくお祭りが過ごせてよかったですわね。私の分まで楽しく過ごせて本当におよろしかったですこと。私だって部活がしたいですわ。みんなで楽しく大騒ぎして楽しくて楽しくて。でも今の私、そんなの。
You know, something I've been thinking for a while now is that Satoko's uncle wasn't actually nearly as bad as we imagined, and a lot of what we saw was just imagination working against us. I have a funny feeling that he actually might not have been nearly as bad. Just a funny feeling. You know? Because that would fit with the rest of the series. Unable to withstand such violent emotion, a few teardrops slid down her cheek. But even though she was having such a terrible time, not once did she ever say it was hard for her. It was a sad, obstinate bravery. But the days when Satoko had to feel like that were over. Satoko didn't need to endure it, to bear it anymore. She could forget all about it now and smile. I was so frustrated at not being able to tell her that directly. Instead, I said something. I'm not sure I should have said before I thought twice about it.
帰ってこないんだろ、あいつは。
The words were deeply meaningful to me, but I don't know if Satoko understood them.
帰ってこないって誰がですの？
ゆうべは帰らなかったんだろ、お前のお家は。
何を言ってますの、圭一さんは。
Satoko shouted with all her might.
あいつがいついなくなったって言うんですの？いつ？
落ち着けよ。だって昨日あいつは帰ってこなかったろ。
圭一さんが何を言ってるのか全然わかりませんでしたよ。
Is he not dead?
さとここそ何を言ってんだよ。だってあの男は。
I killed him. Killed him yesterday. Killed him for sure. And I buried him. Buried him whole. He could never have returned to his house.
昨日だって私にいっぱい意地悪して。
Okay, he is terrible. Okay. Never mind that theory gone.
となってわめいて当たり散らして作ったご飯を投げられた。お味噌汁もひっくり返された。
Or there was somebody else in the house that we've been mistaking for her uncle.
暑かった。汚かった。そしてお掃除も私がした。私が。ああ
What? Our stories weren't matching up.
あいついる？
今朝だって朝ごはんの時起こせって言われたから起こしたのに怒られた。起こさなかったらまた怒るように起こしても怒られた。
里子。
Rika-chan went over to Satoko and said a few words of consolation. But Satoko angrily refused those words and thrust Rika-chan away.
いいに。
Yeah, something ain't matching up.
早く帰ってきてよ。
Or time travel. Or morphogenic fields. Or something. Crying, Satoko slowly walked out in the hallway. After a moment, Rika-chan went after her. I couldn't stop thinking about the words Satoko had spoken while crying. I buried her uncle last night, but she said this morning that was impossible. I buried him last night so he couldn't have seen her uncle this morning. What was Satoko...